Ah, what a brilliant show we're having. It's Spoken World Online, week number 256, and February 18th, 2025. And we have our anniversaries coming up next month, the middle of the month. And Avacha, that was brilliant. Thank you so much for your set, and thrilled to be going on after you. I've been a fan of Acha of yours for many decades now. It's great to be on after you. And since I made the list, I was able to arrange that. I'm going to start with a song lyric, words of James Morris, originally from 1958. The Battle of New Orleans. In 1840, we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we caught the bloody British in the town of New Orleans. We fired our guns and the British kept a coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to running on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. We looked down a river and we seed the British come, and there must have been 100 of them beating on the drums. They stepped so high and they made their bugles ring. We stood beside our cotton bales and didn't say a thing. We fired our guns and the British kept a coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to running on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Old Hickory said we could take them by surprise if we didn't fire our muskets till we looked them in the eye. We held our fire till we seed their faces well. Then we opened up our squirrel guns and really gave them well. We fired our guns and the British kept a coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to running on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, they ran through the briars and they ran through the brambles and they ran through the bushes where a rabbit couldn't go. They ran so fast that the hounds couldn't catch them. On down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. I'm going to read a piece now from the Roarshock page. I put the text, a link to the text in the chat. Theater de la Lumiere, California Street and Polk Street, a major crossroads of the Polk Gulch district, was an important San Francisco commercial corner from the 19th century onward. At that corner, Frank Norris located the dental practice of the title protagonist in his novel McTeague, A Story of San Francisco, 1899, described as being on the second floor with the replica of a great gold tooth dangling above the street entrance as advertisement. The tooth was visualized in a 1920s film of the novel, and the replica was realized in the neighborhood in the early 21st century when hung above the door of McTeague's Saloon, a couple of blocks away on Polk. On the north side of California, above an oddly placed suburban-style bank branch building on the corner, was another strange bit of architecture, the Lumiere Theater, which showed art house independent films from 1967 until it was closed on September 23, 2012. Auguste and Louis Lumiere, the Light Bros, were the first filmmakers in history. They patented the cinematograph, a process that allowed simultaneous viewing by multiple parties. Their first film, Sortie de Louis Lumiere de Lyon, 1895 is now considered the first true motion picture, even though Louis Laprin's Roundhay Garden Show scene, 1888, predated it by 7 years. AA lived for a long time on that block back of an old residential hotel and the Lumiere. The theater's back exit opened on a parking lot, and directly below his southern-facing windows was the mystical and spiritual garden of St. Steve, a true curiosity and natural wonder since the 1960s. The theater was divided inside over several screens, so challenging films were shown simultaneously. Looking up at the skyline, AA could see the Sutro Tower and knew that the air was full of signals, including radio and television broadcasts. Still sitting at his window with late afternoon sunlight sparkling in the garden below, he almost felt the vibes drifting up from whatever provocative film was playing. The absurdity of such a fancy became obvious in the 21st century when the ether was full, not just of broadcast signals, but also myriad cellular telephone conversations, wireless internet connections via all manner of stationary and mobile technological devices. A street fair and blues festival was held annually on Polk for a weekend. The street closed to automobile and bus traffic and filled with craft and food booths, wine and beer gardens, stages and people. A tall stage was always at the corner of California with an artificial lawn laid out on the pavement. The Royale Theater, another old movie palace, was on the west side of Polk from 1916 until all but the facade was demolished in 2003. The venerable Swan Oyster Depot remained next door, but it became near impossible to get in after Anthony Bourdain had lunch there on television. On the east side of Polk was a chain drugstore on the ground floor of a building with the legend Maple Hall atop its facade. AA once read in a newspaper article that the upper floor contained an old ballroom sealed off and untouched for many decades. He could imagine what it must look like, a time capsule of an earlier era, and wished he could access it, or better yet, open it up for some of his accomplished musician friends to lead the dance and kick out the jams. Once in conjunction with the Polk Street Blues Festival, the Lumiere Theater showed the classic movie Greed, 1924, adapted and directed by Erich von Stroheim from Frank Norris's McTeague. The silent film was accompanied on this occasion with live organ music performed by a local bluesman, Melvin Deacon Jones. The amazing film, incomplete and much of it long lost, had location scenes filmed in San Francisco and surrounding environs, including the Cliff House and the East Bay shoreline. Rare film glimpses before development and urbanization came to the whole of the Bay Area. Scenes supposedly depicting 1890s Polk Street were actually filmed on Hayes Street in the early 1920s, but that in no way detracted or distracted from their coolness. AA attended the afternoon show with his wife, which they both enjoyed and long after talked about and fondly remembered. Truth be told, in all the years that AA shared the block with the Lumiere, that was the only time he passed through its doors, which was a remarkable fact, even in those lean years when entertainment dollars were far and few between. In 2012, the world did not end, as some folks, both ancient and modern, had predicted it would. But the Lumiere Theater closed, another lost movie house in an era when even those of modest means were able to set up a personal home theater. After the film ceased, the building was vacant for some time before it was taken over and renovated by a local clothing manufacturer, which truly seemed an anachronism in early 21st century San Francisco. Before many a feature and even after the movie stopped, the Cordon Bleu Vietnamese restaurant was there serving up imperial rolls and 5-spice roast chicken at their tiny counter. The meaning of the number 5 entree was deep old school inside the neighborhood mythology. There was a bar in the middle of the block, the north side of California, that never stayed the same. It was called by so many different names and rotated, ever-changing faces, and always seemed eerie and weird, at least to AA, who never much liked any of the bars on his block, except for the John Barleycorn on Larkin, before the Dragon Lady evicted it. But when the Barleycorn was in business, AA could seldom afford the luxury of drinking there, even though it was on his block. There were other businesses along that block of California for years, the Front Room, pizza parlor on the corner, until they too were evicted. After many years vacant, a diner opened and attracted lines of young men and women seeking brunch. Across the street, a higher-end brunch apocalypse also happened. It was a brunch apocalypse every weekend during the tech brunch years in the city. For many years on the block, there was a shop selling imported British goods, and there was an often changing pizza slice shop. The block had dry cleaning, wash and fold, and a formal wear rental shop. Also, there was a cat hospital. The South Side, always nearly empty after the retail clothier gave way to the thrift store. There was the strange building back up on the street, no business there, and the cheap old sign, New St. Francis Market, liquor. In January 1995, one evening, AA was watching a first-run broadcast of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. In this episode, the Federation crew accidentally traveled back in time to San Francisco, September 2024. The action and the drama took place in the character's past, but in AA's future. Miles O'Brien and Kira Nares materialized in 2024, and via communicator reported that they were currently at the corner of California and Polk. It seemed a remarkably coincidental detail, and for AA, a moment of exceptional television mirth. When his old television broke, AA did not replace it for many years. In 2015, he bought himself a present for his 55th birthday, a 55-inch screen 4K 3D smart television with a sleek curved screen. He could pull in 60-plus digital broadcast channels directly off the Sutro Tower and via the internet access all episodes of Star Trek, plus more movies and other content that he could or would ever watch. It was a rebirth of sorts of the Lumiere Theater. In his living room, he well knew that the arrival of the home theater was what had led to the closure of the Lumiere and most of the city's other movie houses. One thing of which he was sure: in a wild and historic city, he lived on a cosmic block where dreams and realities could be perceived through waves of shifting sounds and moving pictures through times of darkness and light. Thanks so much.